Welcome to episode 2 of the Indy Social Podcast. My name is Danielle Stiles, and today we are interviewing an extra special guest, our very own Chasey Bardach.
Yes, and I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I tell you, I'm more excited for Chas to tell you a little bit about her story, where she's at in business today, and how she's arrived at this location.
Okay, so I have been a photographer for going on about 10 years. I truly started diving into the craft when my first son was born about 10 years ago. So I was photographing families and children with the goal in mind that I wanted to be a wedding photographer. That was like every day I was doing something to move in that direction. After a few years, I started picking up the clientele, was super busy doing weddings, did all the education I could, ebooks online. I took classes at the Art Center, and actually Broderick Art Center here in Indy. I shot a lot of film. I was in the darkroom. I truly learned the craft, and I appreciate the craft. And then I had this whole clientele of weddings, and then came the big burnout for me in my career.
Yeah.
And I was raising a family at the time. I have 3 boys now, but at the time my middle child was born, and I was in the midst of all of these weddings, all of this work. It just became a big to-do.
So photographing while pregnant?
Oh, yes, definitely. I was in my studio photographing at 37, 38 weeks.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And I just came to a quick halt on it, and I burned out.
Did you see it coming?
I didn't. I guess, being a first-time entrepreneur myself and being I feel like I'm not old right now, but I was in my early 20s and not really understanding what the industry was about, and I didn't have that community around me to say, hey, girlfriend, you're going to burn out big time doing all this, doing all the things, all the sessions, all the weddings. So at the time my second son was born, I took a big step back, and I said, I had this beautiful studio at the time, and I really dove into studio work, and I really focused on women's boudoir sessions. And that's something that I truly loved. I still love, but I really focused on having these intimate, creative sessions with these women and making them feel beautiful. And I studied body language, and I watched dancing and dancers, and I really dove into the art of posing as opposed to just looking at...
So movement.
Yes, movement. And I feel like movement comes out big time in my work, what I'm doing now. It's very carried over from that point in my career.
So when you were doing weddings, burning out, I assume at most wedding photographers, you're not just getting asked to do weddings, right? It's a wedding, and then it's a future baby, and it's a future family sessions. So were you really niched in that space, and did you refer out the other business, or were you just chasing paychecks?
I was chasing paychecks. I was taking all the work, saying yes to everything, allowing my rates to be negotiated where they shouldn't have been negotiated, and it just led to big burnout. And on top of that, my husband had taken a job where he was traveling. So it was just a crazy space to be in at that time in life.
Yeah. So when you transitioned into boudoir photography, was that different for you?
It was so different. I enjoy being in the studio at a slower pace, creating with the woman, with my client. I would do, in-person meetings before, and we did these plans and the Pinterest boards at the time, and really, really got what she wanted, and she understood my brand and my what's the word I'm looking for? My experience. It was very much an experience in the studio, and it was a good time.
I think a lot of people have kind of this misconception of how photographers work, where they see a Pinterest image and they take it to their favorite family photographer and say, recreate this for me. And it's maybe very yellow, and you're a very cool photographer, so you don't typically shoot with yellow tones. So I'm just curious how you balance that. I mean, were you able to really define your look when you were taking on all the things?
I don't think I veered from my look too much during that time. Clients may have not gotten what they wanted out of that, but I was very clear on what I looked like and how my branding was, and they saw galleries of my work. The only thing that I can really say what I would tell them was, you're looking at this image, but it's going to be very different. The lighting in my studio is different. I edit different. You look different.
Right.
So I definitely made that very, very clear in those sessions.
So now that you've transitioned from boudoir photography, tell us what you're doing now.
So I think about a year ago, I was creating content for an indie brand here, of which I really loved working for. I was creating all of their content, all of their imagery, and in the process of doing all of this for this company, I realized there was a big, big missing gap within this, within the social media world, within businesses. And so what really led me from the transition from boudoir to working for a company to where I am now, I actually attended an event. Steph Weber put on, what was it now?
As Told by Us.
As Told by Us. I should know that.
Yeah.
And where you and Jordan, whom you've seen in the previous episode, were guest speakers at.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the audience as you guys were speaking about social and what was missing from social and what's missing from businesses. And there were just lights going off in my head, and I was like, these girls have it. These girls have it, and I need to know these girls.
Yeah.
So Steph set up a page, like a group, and you and Jordan posted in it, and I was like, done. I'm there. I'm with these girls. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm following these girls. I don't know. Yes, I didn't know my space at the time, but I definitely wanted to hang out and navigate that.
So that was back in like March, right? As Told by Us was sometime February, March timeframe.
Right. Yes.
So Jordan and I were doing social media mastermind meetups, which were basically just dinners with other women who played in the social scene. And frankly, we just wanted to get together and have spaces where we could have conversation about what's working for you and your clients and what's not working and what are the roadblocks that are kind of preventing us from moving forward. And I remember when you came and you kind of chatted a little bit about your style and where you were, but you didn't know how you wanted to shape that into your future business. So I would love for you to share more about how you've arrived in this space and what it is that you're offering your clients today.
Okay, so as I was navigating the waters with Social Media Mastermind and kind of going to events and being my Enneagram 8, I was observing what was going on at the time. And I really was noticing that there is a big gap in businesses. I want to specialize in female-owned businesses, and that's kind of who we connect with is the female entrepreneurs. And I was gathering that their pain point is their branding imagery.
Yeah.
It's huge.
We've talked about this all the time. You can take a photographer and have them work in front of a room full of clients. I mean, just taking them one after another and just nailing their branding. And then you sit down with that same photography and you ask them to talk about their brand, and it's like they're frozen. They just don't know how to articulate what it is from an imagery perspective that they need their brand to really showcase.
Right. So Rachel and I are collaborating in business with the Content Queens. And what we'll be doing is, so this is what it's going to look like. We're going to meet with our clients, our prospective clients. We're going to talk about your brand, but we also need these clients to come to us knowing their brand, understanding their brand, what it looks like, where their vision is for their next year, where their vision is 5 years from now. And we want to photograph your brand on that level where you want to be 5 years from now.
Oh, I love this.
So we want you to come to us with your logo and your colors and those basic things, but we also want your mission. We want to see your goals, your vision, and we also want to know all about your ideal client and who you are speaking to on social platforms.
Yeah.
So then we will create this big Trello board of all the things to do with your business. You can grab all of your tools that you work with. Clothing will obviously be a non-brainer because Rachel owns Girls in Gray, so that's kind of a side thing. we'll be able to style you and make you feel beautiful at the same time. So we will do a modern headshot for all of our clients. I have a very editorial style, and Rachel and I collaborate very well with our styles. We're very editorial kind of photographers. Rachel's a photographer too, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like the first piece of the branding puzzle. And then the second piece is going to be more of a lifestyle. So it's going to be more of you in your workspace. So if you normally deal with clients one-on-one in person, we can bring in a model, those like have interaction with you doing your work or you and your client. And then the third piece of that puzzle are lay flats. So we'll be able to take all the things. So if you are a brand, like a retail brand, or you're a maker, or if you're a writer, it doesn't matter. So any of your tools, we're going to create all this content for you to use. So that's going to be the very next piece, is teaching you how to use it. So we're not only going to photograph quarterly content twice a year, or content for you once a year. We're going to teach you how to use that content and spread it out throughout the year, show you how to use a content calendar, talk with you about your platforms, and kind of direct you to the resources that you may need to fill in those gaps within your business.
Okay, so this is huge. So if I'm talking as a female entrepreneur and getting ready to launch my website, and I think, okay, what is it from an imagery perspective that I'm going to need to be able to tell the stories? Well, I know I'm going to need some, left justified or right justified landing page options. I'm going to need some properly formatted headers. I'm going to need some stories. I'm going to need Instagram posts. I mean, the list can be really long. So are you offering that consulting session with them to help them craft what it is that they need? Or do I need to know those things when I come to you?
You don't need to know those things when you come to us. We want you, obviously, we work with companies who are active on social platforms, posting, branding, websites, all those things. But we can definitely help you fill in the gaps and tell you what you need. We want to know what your goals are in each of those platforms. We can always refer you to someone who can really work with your business in different ways, telling you the audience you need to speak at and things like that.
Oh, okay. So if I was looking for something like this, I literally could come to you and say, I'm not really sure what I need. I just know I need some help in this path. And here's maybe my list of 4 or 5 non-negotiables that I have to have. You're essentially leading that creative vision to come to fruition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to take you from A to Z and give you all of the tools and resources you need. And if it's something beyond us, we have a great group of women surrounding us in the Indy social that we are ready and willing to give you information for and pass that business along to you. Yes, so that's the point of the Indy social, is to create a collaborative community.
So from a perspective of getting professional imagery, I'm just really curious, because this is always a question we get, is do I have to hire professionally? Can I do it at home? And if I feel like I can't do it at home, what do I need to budget in order to afford professional services?
Okay, so that is a multifaceted answer. So it's always recommended that you go with a professional photographer for your content. There's a big gap in what your imagery is going to look like if you try to do it at home versus what we're going to create for you, or what your photographer is going to create for you. Keep in mind that you do need the right photographer. You need someone who can speak the language, can understand what your goals are, where you're going with this. But also, if there are images that say, hey, you created this event and you're like, I don't have a photographer for this, or I don't have any content that works for this, we're definitely going to fill you in the gap, and we have a service that will teach you how to do photography, even from your iPhone.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go into actually having media that can be consistently ran. So to be able to come in and have somebody not just create it for me, but help guide me to the missing pieces that I probably haven't thought of yet, I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, and it's needed. You know, we talk to a lot of businesses, and that's their missing piece. Their missing pieces is their imagery, and their missing pieces, or the other missing piece is how to run media, how to run social media, which you kind of can come in on that one, Danielle,
Sure,
right?
Sure. So this is really the question, though, is do they just not have the content, or do they sit and spin on it if you do give it to them? Right? So you deliver a gallery that's got 150 images in it that's set to cover them over the course of the next 3 months. What's next?
Yeah, their missing piece is the doing, the knowing, using that content. I know so many sessions that I've shot, like in my past, that before I created this brand with Rachel and thought of all the things that learned what the business owner needed and been in the trenches with that. I've seen people sit and spin on amazing images. Like,
it's like paralysis. It's
like
crazy.
Thousands of images that are amazing, and then I go to their Instagram and it's like, oh, well, why aren't they using these? Because they don't know how, and they don't have the tools for that. So we definitely want to bridge that gap in the media world.
Yeah, I love that. So I gotta know, you're speaking to it very elusively. Is it out? Is it launched? Can we hire you?
You can hire me.
Okay.
You can hire me, and it is launched. So we are the Content Queens. So on Instagram, we're Content Queens Indy.
Okay, so we will link in the show notes for this episode direct information to the Content Queens. If that's something that your business and your brand has been looking for, if you're considering 2020 and wanting to know what it is that you're going to do for your brand and your business to really take it to the next level, I don't think there's any question that imagery plays an insanely important role in telling that digital story. But I think more importantly, and this is just my experience, having somebody there to just be an advocate for you, to not just tell you that outfit looks crazy, but to make sure that you're telling the right story appropriately for your brand, and just a tour guide, if you will, through this entire process. There's not a lot of us who are massively comfortable on camera, myself being one of them. It's true, though. I mean, when you get in front of a camera and you start to think of what is it that I'm trying to convey to my audiences, what offers, what tools, what celebratory things do I need to make sure that I'm covering content for today that's going to serve me weeks and months to come, it can be paralyzing.
It is.
That's a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're here to take the headache out of it, and we want to do it, and we love doing it.
So remind me, who is your target audience? Who is it that your brand is really setting out to serve?
Well, Rachel and I both have kind of, through the Indy Social, kind of made it known that we do definitely want to serve the female entrepreneur. But we do also want to go beyond that. The creators, the makers, the creative audience, the marketing gurus.
Yeah.
You marketing gurus still need imagery, right?
We do.
You know how to run that social media, but you also need imagery. So,
which honestly is everything. I mean, if you're not present in social in a thoughtful way, in a way that's truly telling your brand story, people are questioning your brand just based on your imagery. It's crazy.
And being the face of we all know this about right now in this hot social media world. If your face is not on your brand, you lose some credibility in that, and you gain. There's so much to be gained with having your face on your brand. It just speaks leaps and bounds for you.
So I'm really curious your thoughts on stock imagery.
It doesn't speak your brand. It's not an authentic thing. Okay. And people really can feel that. You know, you might think you're saving a couple bucks by doing that, but you're also missing out on a lot of money by not hiring someone who really can bring your brand to life on media.
All right, so I'm going to hit you with something that we didn't prepare for. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. I'm always ready for you, Danielle Stiles.
All right, so I'm looking for the top 2 tips to anybody who's looking to do a branding session. What are some things like prerequisites that I need to be prepared for?
I kind of hit on it back before that, like your vision. Like, have you sat down and you thought about your next year? Have you thought about where you want your brand to be? What's your dream big goal in 5 years? Like, where do you want to see your brand? Like, that is what you want to be thinking about when you are. I know it sounded kind of a generic.
Help me understand. Like, okay, if I know where I'm going to be in 5 years, how is that changing the way that you're photographing me today?
So are you going to be in a different office space in 5 years? Are you going to be using different tools? Say Rachel and I, we are photographers, but we want to add video to that very soon. So Rachel and I would do a branding session and add video to that. So you're just thinking as you're growing, in the next year, we know we're going to add video or we're going to have that collaboration. So that's part of our brand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay. So I need to be thinking much longer term than just the months or the weeks of which I'm truly creating content for.
Absolutely.
Okay, so give me tip number 2. What is the other thing I absolutely have to do before I come in for a branding session?
You have to mentally prepare to be in front of the camera because we know it's an awkward thing. We're in front of the camera as well.
Yeah.
So we definitely, we have a gift of making women feel comfortable in front of the camera, even though it's not. You know what I'm saying?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I love it. I am so excited to watch Content Queens develop. We will be dropping links below as these episodes continue to go live over the course of the next few months. We will always come back and provide some additional resources. So if you're looking to connect with Chas or Rachel, definitely reach out to us. Let us know. But most importantly, the Indy Social exists to serve you. So we're going to put a post up about our episode here today. If you have any questions, if there's a one-off, what is it going to cost me? Am I ready? Any questions you have, make sure you send those along because we'll be happy to answer those for you. Thanks again. We'll see you guys in the next episode.